my name is Salima. Welcome back to my channel. And today we're going to start a series. It's going to be a 5-video series on basically what I did in my 30s, because I'm 45 here. We're 44. I'll be 45 at the end of the year. But what I did in my 30s to usher in an era of wellness and vitality and to level up my 40s. Because it was a process, child. It wasn't something that I just, that I started in my 40s. It's not something that I even was inspired to start in my 40s. I started looking at this just in an overall lifestyle change back in my 30s, even late 20s. So this is going to be the first video of 5. So definitely stay tuned in, and I'll have a playlist for you so that you can see the other videos. But it's 5 things, and I'm going to break down within those 5 things what I did and what I've done and what I continue to do, so that what I was inspired by and about in my 30s, I was able to usher that into my 40s and experience that here in my 40s, and can even continue to grow from that. Okay, so a little bit of my backstory. My 30s, going into my 30s, I went into my 30s from a very trying, hard Saturn return. Like everything was taken from me. Everything was pulled out from me, pulled out from under me. So the energy of me going into my 30s was really about clearing a lot of misguidance, misconceptions, wrong information, a lot of trauma, a lot of unproductive behavior, unproductive patterns of behavior, just clearing all of that shit out. So the end of my 20s and the beginning first part of my 30s was just all about clearing out. I was married. I had a young child. By the time I was about in my early 30s, he was in elementary school. Like when this initially started, maybe at 2008, 2009, he would have been about 6 or 7 at the time. So I had a young child, still, married, and just going through a lot of transition. So what inspired me to start on this journey, on this path, was there was a time when I wasn't working. I had lost my job. You know how the Saturn return does. I lost my job, lost all my foundational stuff. So I was watching a lot of YouTube, and there were women on there in their 40s and even their mid 40s. And I was freshly crossed over into 30. And I was watching them, and they were just talking about how they felt going into their 40s, and how they felt like they were more comfortable in their skin, and they loved themselves more, and they were more comfortable with who they were as a woman. And they'd already kind of gone through, raising their kids, and their kids were kind of in the middle stage of adolescence development. So some of them had teenagers, some of them had adolescents, prepubescent adolescents who were getting ready to go into teenagerhood, or who were getting ready to cross over into like high school. And I had one in elementary school. So I was just listening to their wisdom and listening to them share their stories. So I was inspired. And what I started thinking about was like, I don't want to wait until I'm 40 to get over there. I need that now. I want to feel comfortable in my skin now. I want to feel good about myself now. I want to express myself the way I want to express myself now. I want to feel all of that now. I don't want to wait. Whatever, life changes or whatever was going on, that for my generation and the generation kind of before me, that would then allow us to go into this midlife. Because we was, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we were thinking midlife was 40, and that's what was being sold to us. So I was like, no, I don't want to wait till 40. I want to do that now. I want to feel that way. I deserve to feel that way by myself right now. So that's when I got inspired, in my early 30s. And the first thing that I had to do was I had to start prioritizing my mental health, my physical health, my emotional health, my spiritual health. I had to sit down and take stock and take evaluation of, where am I in myself? And I was not prioritized at all. I had to acknowledge and accept that I was sacrificing myself to the life that I had built. I loved being married. I loved being a mother. But I didn't get the proper examples growing up and the proper tutelage and guidance on how to maintain my core as a woman while I played in the roles and the dynamics, shifting in and out of the dynamics of being a woman, like being a mother, being a daughter, being a wife, things like that. Because those are roles that we play. So the main thing I had to do was I had to acknowledge and accept that I was sacrificing myself. As the anchor in my life, everything connected to me. My spouse connected to me, my household connected to me, my son connected to me. Everything was connected to me and was drawing from me, and I was the support for everything. But I didn't know how to replenish myself. I didn't know how to sit and acknowledge the things that I really needed. I knew what I needed, but I knew how to sacrifice from how I was reared through my childhood of being conditioned to sacrifice to my mom and her inadequacies and her inabilities to sustain herself. That it was just a generational rolling over of that behavior. So I didn't know how to center myself, nourish myself, rejuvenate myself, and then be able to give to the roles that I was playing and the people who I was supporting in my life. I didn't know how to do that. So everything about me would be abandoned. It would be put on the table. It would be crossed off the list so that I could give to what I had agreed to participate in these roles that I was playing: mom, mommy, and wife. So I had to not acknowledge that, I didn't have the right guidance. I didn't have the right preparation. I didn't have the right knowledge in order to successfully play out those roles in a way that I could sustain myself and enjoy it and live it out robustly. I also had to acknowledge that in order to work on prioritizing, because you can't get it, I could not get into the prioritization until I sat down with myself about these things. So to step into then being able to prioritize, I had to sit with all of this. The other thing that I had to sit with about myself was just acknowledging that I needed more from my life than I had at the time. And that led me to take responsibility for myself. Because erroneously, I was, and this is just from not knowing. This is just from unhealthy programming, just not knowing. I was expecting and waiting to feel good from my son, to feel good as a mother from my interactions with my son, and to feel good as a wife from what my husband was bringing me. But I'm the core of that. I had to learn and acknowledge and take responsibility that no, you can't wait for all this external stuff to give you what you think you need. If you take stock and you say, these are the things that I need, then you are responsible for getting them. You built this. You stepped into these roles. You agreed to participate in these roles. So you are responsible for acquiring what it is that you need. And erroneously, I had flipped it because I was unaware. I was just like, okay, we're going to be a mom. Okay, I'm going to be a wife. And I'm going to step in, and thinking because of TV and books and church and all this other erroneous programming, unproductive programming that was going to tell me, you wait to receive it. But if the people who are participating, if they're anchored to you, then how are you going to receive it from them? How do they know what to give you? If you don't speak up and say, these are the things that I need, I'm still me, I'm still Salima, I'm still a woman, these are the things that I need, then how are you going to receive it? So I had to really get down and be honest with myself that, I was sacrificing myself to what I had built, to the roles that I was participating in because I didn't know any better, that I needed more from my life, and I needed to take responsibility in order to obtain that and to establish that in my life. I needed to acknowledge the deficit that I was in my mental health, in my emotional health, in my physical health, and in my spiritual health. I had to acknowledge that I was in the deficit, then create a healthy vision for myself of where I wanted to be, because I would just be torturing myself about what I didn't have and what I wanted, but not saying, okay, let's hold the vision to get there. You know, that's why I had to come in and take responsibility for myself. So I had to admit that I didn't have healthy mental practices to be well. I was neurotic. I was anxious. I wasn't thinking good thoughts. I was a terror to myself mentally. I had to admit that I was in a deficit emotionally because I had a lot of trauma built up from my childhood, from my early adult years, and just trauma of just not knowing what the fuck was going on, not knowing how to work in the world productively and in the spirit and energy of wellness. I didn't know. And that wasn't a fault of mine, but it was my responsibility. I did not know. I had to acknowledge the deficit, that I had a lot of traumatic energy trapped in me, and I was eating myself into submission and repression. I was just doing a lot of things that were detrimental to my health and my wellness emotionally, to suppress what it was I was feeling, because I didn't want to feel it. It was too overwhelming. And I needed to find healthy ways to release that so that I could feel my emotions and release it and utilize the energy for my benefit. I had to acknowledge that I was not in a good place, and I was in the deficit physically. I was over 300 pounds. I was immobile. My mobility, my flexibility, and my ability to just move and be in my body was greatly impacted. I won't say negatively, but detrimentally impacted. And I needed to do something about it. I need to get healthy in my physicality. You know, none of this stuff matters if I can't move around and do the things that I need to do. If I can't get to where I need to go physically, be in my body and be comfortable in my body the way that I want to, then none of this other stuff matters. I had to admit that spiritually, just in my overall energy of who I am. I was not healthy. I was in the deficit. I was suppressing myself. I wasn't expressing myself. I was closeting myself and closing myself up. I wanted to live life at a certain level, experience certain things, and I was not creating the space in the life that I was building to do that. So I had to acknowledge these deficits and sit down and be real with myself. And that is what opened up the space for me to then say, okay, you need to prioritize yourself, Salima. And that was the first thing that I had to do in my 30s, was learn, be honest with myself, dig into the things that I was doing that was creating a life experience, a reality experience that I didn't find pleasing, that wasn't pleasurable. It didn't fit the vision that I had for myself, that I wasn't really claiming. It was just what I wanted, you know, running in the background. But once I said, no, this is how I want to be. I want to be comfortable in my skin. I want to live this way. I want to wake up in the morning and experience these things. Once I was honest that I wasn't doing that, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was sacrificing myself, and I needed to do better for myself. Then I was able to move into the energy of prioritizing my mental health, my emotional health, my spiritual health, my physical health, so that I could begin to live life more on my terms by putting myself at the head of the list and not at the back of the list. So if anything else transpired, well, I'm easy to cross off. I'm easy to abandon the things that I was doing before. Okay, so that's the end of this video of one of the things that I did in prioritizing my mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual wellness in my 30s, and learning how to do that and what I needed to do so that I could live in more of a sense of robust wellness in my 40s. So stay tuned for the next video. I'm going to go into the progression, because it's a progression of the next thing that I did in my 30s, in order to live in a better sense of wellness and better sense of myself in my 40s.